I had no idea that SWAT, like the SWAT that I used to watch on TV with my dad, was real. I didn't think they flashbanged like people in the real world. Like I used to play that on Call of Duty. And yeah, so we had jimmied up the door and they came through the window and they flashbanged and through the door, and I'm standing there flushing dope down the toilet, and he's flushing through in the shower because we had a lot, right? And they kicked in the door, and I looked at them, I'm like, it's not mine. Yeah, so September 6th, 2017. I was arrested in that hotel room by Constable Mitchell. And September 7th, I woke up clean in a jail cell, and that is my clean date. And I remember sitting across from this addictions counselor with my arms crossed, like, you know, how are you going to help me? Like, you went to school for this? And then she told me a little bit of her story, and she was just like me. She was just like me.
This is Hard Knocks Talks.
What's up, Meagan?
Not much, you. You want me to?
I'm on the podcast, Dan.
Yeah. I'm on Hard Knocks Talks. I'm not watching it.
Yeah, well, and as we were talking before the show, I mean, I saw you speaking a little while ago, and I didn't even realize that it was Meagan from Facebook that I've known for so long. And, you know, I've sort of watched your journey. I remember when you posted that you graduated from drug court and stuff like that. And listening to you talk, it was like, holy cow, SWAT teams and drug dealing and like all, I'm like, oh, whoa, that's crazy. And that's right here in Saskatchewan. So I thought it's important to get you on here to let people know what's actually what really happens here in Saskatchewan, because there's a lot of people that are like, not in my backyard, right?
Yeah.
So is there anything that you'd like to say before we really jump into it?
You know, that I hope that anyone watching this, like if you're struggling out there, I hope that you can find hope or relate to my story and just know that there is a way out. I at one time got down on my knees and thought the only way out was death. And today I'm here, you know, almost 7 years clean, and I found a way out, and you can too.
Why don't you take us back then? You're a Moose Jaw now, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty loud. I'm from Moose Jaw, but I actually I'll just jump into it. I grew up in a city called Yorkton. It's kind of, I always call it the hillbilly city. It's not very big. I grew up, I don't have that stigmatized or that stereotype of a broken family. It's just not part of my story. And I did notice that, like, one of the biggest things when I was a kid is that I like to hustle. I like to do it. Like my sister and I have a younger sister and no older siblings. And my younger sister and I, we would play dolls, you know, downstairs. I'm like 8 years old. And, you know, she would want to have like all the dolls as her children. Like she was playing house. And me, I had the adoption agency where she had to pay for the baby. And then I had the school where she had to bring the kid to go to school. You know, like it was always about making money or hustling or whatever. Grew up really good, was involved in sports, and sports were kind of boring when I started. The only sport that wasn't was soccer, because it was so, like, there's a lot of running, and it was the only one that I wasn't good at. So it was like, it was a challenge to me. So I wanted to play it. And I was good. Everything I do, I have to be the best at, and very competitive. And so, you know, by 10 years old, my dream is to be, you know, playing for Team Canada one day. Like, I want to be a soccer player. I had the high school coaches already poaching me, like, what high school are you going to go to?
At 10 years old?
Yeah. Well, I played with one of the coach's daughters, and she's like, man, like, you're gifted, right? And well, like, I didn't start drugs until high school, right? I smoked cigarettes, like, I'd steal them off my mom to be cool. And but, you know, I was a pretty sheltered kid. We went to we had money, and so we went to the brand new school. We lived in a brand new area. And when I say that, like, we didn't have crime in our area, right? We didn't, like, the police lived in the area that we lived in, and you'll get why that's important later on. But so I go to high school, and it's like, you know, at my elementary school, I was the big fish in the little pond, and now I go to high school, and I'm the little fish in a big pond, and I'm trying to fit in, and I didn't even really have to try out. I made this high school soccer team, and my passion was in soccer, but now I'm playing with these grade 11s and 12s and 14. I'm really trying to, you know, fit in and be cool. And I'm going to these parties that, you know, I was pretty sheltered from. I remember the first time someone offered me alcohol, I had no hesitation to say no.
Was there ever any conversations about drugs and alcohol, like when you were growing up? I mean, it sounds like you had a really wholesome and productive family. Was there ever any conversations, or was that just not even on anybody's radar?
My dad's a hockey player.
Yeah.
So, we always had hockey wind-ups at our house, and it's not to blame him or anything, but, it was socially acceptable, like, they would drink at, him and his hockey team, and my mom and her friends, they'd have a couple beers at at a hockey wind-up or, in the blue room at the hockey rink, and, like, that was normal to me,
Mm.
but they could shut it down. They'd drink that night, and they'd shut it down. They'd
Yeah.
tuck us all into bed. They weren't running around the streets at 4 a.m.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So
you were offered alcohol and there was absolutely no hesitation, no concern for your own well-being or anything like that. How did the night turn out?
here's where I have no control because I didn't know the difference between a beer and a 2-6 of vodka,
Mm.
right? And I drank that 2-6 of vodka with a friend. I came home. I was on the bathroom floor. I don't really remember, but I know that like, it was coming out of all ends,
Mm.
so I definitely had alcohol poisoning. And even then, like nobody took me to the hospital.
Really?
My mom was so worried about me, like, but mad at the same time. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're 14 years old. This isn't, this isn't like it blew them out of the water that I even came home like that.
Mm.
So I was still around 14 years old when this was going on. I ended up with this. I played for all these soccer teams, and it was a rec soccer team. And I don't know what I was on, if I was on weed, mushrooms, something like that. But yeah, like I was out on the field, and I remember trying to show off in front of this boys team, right? And bounced the ball, did some cool twisty move, but I landed wrong. I
Mm.
landed wrong on my ankle. I can remember it like hearing it just pop. They had to rush me to Yorkton Hospital. It wasn't that bad. Like I got rushed to Regina, but it was I ripped a bunch of tendons.
Mm.
And so there went my career. I was gonna play for Team Canada. I was gonna be a soccer star. Like there was there was no plan B, right? And
Mhm.
so that just I lost my identity. And prior to that, it was like, okay, I can't use too much tonight because I got a game or a practice, and
Right.
now I didn't have that as an excuse, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Now and I mean, I think eventually, even if I was playing soccer with the use that I was doing, I think eventually it would have taken it away anyway,
Mm. Yeah.
you know?
So, as far as the using goes, what did the lifestyle that went along with it look like?
It's actually a good question because at 14, I was just I was doing it for fun. It was I was partying. We were going to house parties, and I was still making it to Christmas. Like I was still, those things were still important to me, and I was just a young kid at the wrong place at the right time. I don't know. And I met a guy, and he had taken me up to Edmonton on the rigs with him. Yeah,
That escalated quickly.
yeah.
So you're in Edmonton now.
I'm in Edmonton. He's just working up there. I didn't get to do much other than sit on this rig with a bunch of dudes and just a lot of drugs, right?
So you were on job sites.
Yeah, yeah,
You literally went right to work with him
yeah,
and just sat there
yeah. Just hung out. I just did dope all day. Partied. Like there was parties.
during the day
Yeah.
at work.
Well, they would be working. I was partying by myself, I guess you could say. I met this guy from Winnipeg there, and he had this big bag of candy to me, and I wanted it. And so he said, well, I go through Yorkton to come to work. I mean, we were paying like 10-15 bucks a pill at that time, and he's going to bring them to me for 25 cents a pill.
Mm-hmm.
Like like now I see all these dollar signs. Then I just saw big bags of candy. So one time he came down and he's like, how, like, you're selling this many pills, how do you not have a bunch of money in your pocket right now? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I just buy it to support me and my friends. Like, my friends and all my girls and we were getting high for free. And I remember when he said, how do you not have a whole bunch of money in your pocket? And I'm like looking at him like, why do you, like, why don't you want to just get as high as I am? Like, I remember he pulled out a bag of crystal meth, and he said, this will help you have money in your pocket. He's like, you're gonna take this so that you stop killing it on that. Honestly, like, I will never say that there wasn't benefits to using, because if there wasn't, I would have never picked it up. After I tried it, I had no desire to use anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I remember one day my mom, like the fighting with them, like coming down, the hangovers, all that kind of stuff. Like, I'd have my mom in a headlock. I'd drag her down the stairs, like they're doing this out of love, but they just don't know what to do. And I'm returning the favor with like physical violence.
Mm.
And you have to remember, like, I'm the oldest in my family, so I do have a younger sister. So I grew up with no addict in the family. She did. She watched it. At a very young age, she was cleaning up my house parties, like trying to keep me from getting in trouble. I remember one time I came home, I came through the door. I remember like falling onto her, and I didn't know who I fell onto. And, my shirt was backwards. Like I was falling apart, and, she straightened me up and got me into bed and, tucked me in kind of thing. And, she was always there for me. But that's gotta be a lot of trauma for her. Right.
Yeah.
And she looked up to me. So, I think one of those lines that we say we're never going to cross was like I was 15 years old, and I started selling weed to her, and, well, it's just pot, right? Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
Then, like, my mom worked for social services. My dad was a government worker. This guy that was coming from Winnipeg, he came and we partied all night. And in the morning, he was going to drop me and my girlfriend off at the high school. And we get rolled by the police from every direction on this. And like I said, I lived in a good area, and the police lived like 4 houses down, right? So, we got rolled from every direction, ripped out of the vehicle. I remember getting searched right there in the middle of the street in front of all of the neighbors that have watched me grow up, right? So, they found 8,000 pills of ecstasy, a bunch of pot, a bunch of other stuff. And, so they did that. They raided my parents' house, and that was my first time being arrested, where it was like an overnight arrest. Meanwhile, I'm like so high, like I was doing like 20 pills throughout a day, right? 26 pills throughout the day,
And meth.
Yeah. And so like I'm a party girl, and I'm in this cell, and I'm like dancing. My friend's in the next cell, and like, we're having like a little rave in there, and we're yelling back and forth, and it was a good time. And then which is crazy.
I was like, was it actually a good time? Like you
we
were
were
like,
making the best of it, like we're so crazy. But
the cup is half full of meth.
I ended up getting released with a bag full of, they thought, because it was my tongue rings, and they thought it was tongue rings, but it was still ecstasy pills. So it's a little insider between me and my friend Chelsea that they released us with a good time. But yeah, I was in that cell, and it was a couple days in, and me and Chelsea, we were like partying in the cells, and then they let my dad come see me, and they put me into that room, and I sat down, and he walks through the door, and I just see the shame in his face. And I didn't like that. I didn't like feeling shame. And like he looked at me, he's like, what's going on? Like, what's going on, Meagan? And I just got up. I'm like, I can't talk to you about this right now. And I left. Like most people would be like, yes, get me out of here. And all I wanted to do was get out of that room, because I didn't want to feel that. Like I always say this, like none of us addicts, like in kindergarten or whatever, we never say we want to grow up to be junkies, right? Like we don't say we want to be incarcerated, bring our entire family shame. Like we didn't want to do those things. But I felt it. And then, my parents hired this hotshot lawyer, and I ended up getting released a couple weeks later, and it was a big drug bust for Yorkton, right? Small city.
All over the news.
Yeah, except they couldn't put my name in the paper. So instead, they put my parents' address. So it was quite embarrassing. And so my dad didn't want to go to work. Mom didn't want to go to work. They didn't know what to do. They reached out to I remember my grandma Nina and my grandpa Dickie, they came down. I was passed out downstairs, and I come upstairs, and I saw my grandma and grandpa, and I was like, I'll just be right back. And I went back downstairs, crawled out my window, because I wanted to avoid pain at any cost. I crawled out my window and took off for a few days until they left.
Yeah.
It's a good thing that came out of me getting arrested. Like I had to sit on like probation condition things while we were fighting it in trial. And so because of it, part of my conditions was to attend school regularly. I'm going to do a shout out, Dream Builders School in Yorkton. They are an amazing school. It's a school for kids like me that get kicked out. And this teacher there, Mr. Ronnie, he was amazing. He worked with me at my own pace. Which was pretty fast. But, like the encouragement I got there, it's just a great school, and like, how could I succeed there, but I couldn't succeed in other high schools, right? Because they met me where I was at. And so and because of them, I have a grade 12 today.
So, okay. So you graduate high school, then what?
I dated, I had a lot of like high risk relationships. I met this guy from here in Saskatoon. We sold a bunch of drugs together. He ended up being like, he was a thief. So he liked to steal things, and he ends up going to jail. And while he's in jail, I meet another dude. And this guy's like, he's gorgeous, and he's got a truck, and he's, he owns a house and a bar and like all these things. And so
he owns a bar.
Well, his parents do.
Okay.
But in my head,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
get to drink for free.
Yeah.
So, and it's outside of Yorkton, and I think this is a great opportunity. So I move in with him, and I had this cool, I think it was a Nokia actually, this one cool phone, and I remember him taking it, and he just like smashed it, and I was like, "What are you doing, man?" Like I was like, I remember that being the moment that I knew that like, okay, this is what this is. Like,
Yeah.
this is the kind of relationship this is. And, slowly he kind of like divided me from my family. In the beginning, I fought him like hell. Like I was a controlling person myself. So, I would go to like my friends' places and they sell drugs, and, he would call the police to have me removed from there, like that I'm in danger. And so it became such a burden for everyone else. And I didn't want to be a burden on everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
So I just decided like, I guess I'm stuck here. Like this is like,
This
I
is
don't
life
want,
now.
yeah, this is my life now. And
Yeah.
I remember actually reaching out to his mom for help. And she said, I'm not going to say the name, but she said, these men, they're very jealous. You just got to learn to live with it. And like, so I was very angry about her, like when I first got out of this relationship. But today I realized that she was a victim too.
Mm-hmm.
She was a victim of domestic violence, of controlling, like all that kind of stuff, emotional abuse. And I pray for her. I was with him for like 5 years, something like that. But I remember like not being allowed to leave the house. So for a while there, I wasn't allowed to do drugs because I couldn't get them. He'd let me have animals. And so I had dogs, and I was breeding them, and I talked to them, I named them people names, and I would talk to them like they were human. And like I think something up here snapped a little bit during that time. And eventually he ended up getting arrested for a bunch of stolen property, and I knew nothing about it. The whole farm got raided. Like I'm waking up one morning thinking I'm going to feed the dogs, and there's this loud banging on the door, and I like go, and they've got their guns drawn on me, and I'm like what is going on? Like plus this is the most people I've seen in years, because like I've been so secluded from everyone. So these police come, they throw me on the ground, they're arresting me, I'm in like a nightgown, like I'm like, what is going on? They're loading up my dogs into this car. I don't know what's happening, and I get hauled off. I find $900,000 worth of stolen property, like machines. There's a chop shop going on. There's underground Quonsets, and I knew
Underground Quonsets.
yes. And so when they haul me in, because they don't find him there at the house, they raid the place and they find me. They found grow up lights. They found all this stuff, and I had no clue, Dan. Like I had no
Wow.
clue of any of this stuff. Like, and I was there every day.
Small town Saskatchewan. Let's go.
Yeah. So anyway, and like the thing is, it was, major crimes from Regina, but there was Yorkton RCMP that were helping, and some of these police knew me from my past as a youth, and so they hauled me into this interrogation room, and this officer, she's female, and she's sitting across from me, and she's like, "Come on, Meagan, like come on, like we know each other, like you're gonna tell me you're that stupid? You didn't know this was going on?" And like today, that her voice rings in my head all the time whenever I feel like, am I being that stupid again? Like, am I having, is this person taking advantage? Like,
Yeah.
and I'm very careful not to be that stupid again, but, yeah, it really stuck with me. And I didn't know how to tell her that, yeah, I am that fucking stupid,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to admit that, but yeah. So, when that was when the relationship ended. So it was kind of forced to be ended, but I was happy about it. But I remember having like panic attacks even after that, because yeah, I'm happy to be free, but I don't know how to live without being told what to do. Like it had been years.
Yeah.
So, before like they dropped me back off at the farm, and I picked up my car, and I pack it up with some stuff, and I leave, and I'm like on my way to my parents' house, because that was the plan. And before I get to my parents' house, I'm getting high. And within a week, I was using more than I ever used, right? And now it's just strictly meth, because by this time you can't even find e-pills.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then from there, it was just like, he was so controlling that I was like, it's a big thing for me is that I realized after him that I was never going to let anyone control my life, and especially not men,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so after that, it's like hurt people. I was so abused that I was like, screw this, like I'm gonna hurt you before you can hurt me. I'm gonna be the abuser in every relationship, whether it be with my sister, my mom, my boyfriend, like whoever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like I had to be the one that hurt you. Right?
And how old are you at this point?
Probably 24, 25.
Okay.
Yeah. And at this point I have the trauma, right? Like before I didn't have trauma, I was just using for fun. I lost my identity, which could be like a little bit, but
yeah,
now I actually have trauma, and like I didn't know how to cope with that, deal with that. I didn't even know it was called trauma. And I went into unhealthy relationships, and like some of us steal, some of us binge, some of us,
Yeah.
sell drugs. And so for me, that's just what I've always done since I was a little kid. And yeah, so I would start using or start selling, and then the using and selling just it goes hand in hand for me. And then I get into unhealthy relationships, and then eventually, the either the police would start pulling me over trying to catch me, and I could tell it was going to happen, or I'd end up getting arrested and going to jail and getting out and then having to fight charges. So I'd clean up for a little bit just to do it. I remember being like, I can't be an addict. I can't have a problem with drugs because I can stop. I can
Mhm.
stop for a few days, I can stop if I need money, if I, to get more, but I always gave myself permission to use again, right? Like I was going to use as soon as, I got out of jail, or I was going to use as soon as I got this money that I needed to pay buddy.
Mhm.
And but yeah, it was just a cycle like that. I
Mhm.
ended up meeting this guy from Alberta, Edmonton. At the time, like I thought it was great because we were on opposite teams, I guess, with selling drugs, and now we're the same team, and so it was just we were making way more money together, and we're going all over the provinces, and because now we're heavily involved in gangs, right? I haven't joined one.
Mhm.
He's a gang member. Like I remember we had two rival gangs come at the same time, right? And so there was a lot of risky shit, and like we had to like de-escalate that, right? And I remember one day sitting in a hotel and just thinking like, "Fuck, like I used to go to church with my grandma, like how'd I get here? It's like this small window of clarity, and then and then I take another hoot, and that clarity is gone.
So are you like carrying weapons at
Oh
this
yeah.
point?
Oh
You're
yeah. All the time.
are you hurting people? Are you like
Yeah,
is there
like,
violence?
you know what? I'm like the kind of person that I didn't like to, like, I was like, why would you want to hurt someone so that they can't pay you? Right? Like,
Yeah.
I want to threaten you. I didn't like to get my hands dirty. So at this point, like, he did all that. Right?
Okay.
That's kind of why I had him there.
Mhm.
And then, and then we had other people that did that stuff. Right? Like, I was no stranger to like using knives. Right? I hated guns, but I'd use knives all the time. Like,
Like you'd cut people
yeah,
all the
or
time.
threaten them. Threaten
Yeah.
them. Threatening them is like you don't have to cut them deep to threaten them,
Yeah.
right? And so that's what I got into, and I remember being like so desensitized to it. I don't know, like I had shitty things happen to me, and so if you had them happen to you, you'd do the same, right?
Mhm.
Or it's my life on the line, so your life's on the line,
Mhm.
right?
Where did this all get to the place where you thought like maybe I can live a different way?
This guy that I was dating, all this dangerous stuff, we ended up getting busted in 2016 at the Coachman Hotel. I had no idea that SWAT, like the SWAT that I used to watch on TV with my dad, was
Mhm.
real. Like
Mhm.
I didn't think they flashbanged like people in the real world. Like I used to play that on Call of Duty, and yeah, so we had jimmied up the door, and they came through the window, and they flashbanged, and they were coming, and I remember they came and they kicked open the bathroom door, and I'm standing there flushing dope down the toilet, and he's flushing through in the shower because we had a lot, right? And they kicked in the door, and I'm like, I looked at them, I'm like, it's not mine.
Like that
Like,
would make any difference at all.
yeah, like I'm caught red-handed with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get hauled away, and here, like we had both loaded up to take in with us because I knew the cops were at the door. I just didn't think that they were that rank, like they had big guns and whatever. And it's actually kind of scary because like I get hauled into this dry cell. They dry cell me. They didn't catch me with it, but his opened up in him, and he had heroin, and so it opened up on him. He almost died. Like he
Yeah.
ended up in the hospital for a couple weeks, and like I'm in trouble here. They caught me with a lot. I know that I'm like before that they never, they'd catch me with money or they'd catch me with dope. They never catch me with both. They never catch me with the phone. Like I always could get away with it, right? In court, and this time I knew that I was
Mm.
right. Like they had everything, and
Guns?
no guns. I had
Weapons?
knives, yeah,
Yeah.
knives, bear mace, like all that stuff, and we had them, they just weren't on us,
Mm.
and, yeah, so I know that this time, like, I need help, so I call my family, and I'm calling my mom wouldn't even talk to me at this point because I called her so many times with these. Every time I go to jail, I'm always like, when I get out, I'm gonna do better, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and, when I get out, nothing was ever set up for me to succeed. right? Like that I just got out and it's like, okay, I'll go live at my mom's where she doesn't know how to, supervise somebody like me.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and maybe I would get a job and maybe I would get an apartment, but as soon as I got those things, I was back using. Or I would think like my first paycheck, I'm like, hey, I could triple this,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like I just didn't know how to think a different way. So yeah, I called my family and my mom's not talking to me, and I called my auntie Roxy, and she's an amazing woman. And so my auntie Roxy ends up, talking to my dad, and they end up paying for my bail and paying for a lawyer. And like all together, like I think my bail was 5 or 10 grand, and my lawyer was 10 grand, and so that's a lot of money,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
I don't care what social status you are, that's a lot of money. And I was released on an ankle monitor. I had to go to my like house arrest thing and had to go to my auntie's place, and I was required to live there. And I like that because my auntie, like I'm her favorite, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I used to always think I'm her favorite. She's my favorite auntie. And I knew that I didn't like the shame again, right? Like I could see how disappointed and how much we were clashing, and I just did not want that. Like I didn't want the relationship I had with my mom to be with my auntie too,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I like to be, I liked that she liked me. And so I took off. I ran. I started to think that like, will I ever be like my family? Like, will I ever shut down?
Mm-hmm.
Like shut this life down? And I don't think I ever thought that like putting down drugs would cure my problems. I think that there was always I think at that time I was still thinking there was a way to use successfully,
Yeah.
like I didn't
Yeah.
see that drugs were the problem yet. I thought people were.
Yeah.
But I went on the run, and it's an important part of my story because like I was an entitled brat, right? Like a rich kid, like had everything given to her, and then I went on the run, and I realized that like prior to that, like I was part of the hidden homeless. Like we have that word hidden homeless, and
Yeah.
I didn't have a home, but I could stay with family, I could stay with friends, I could stay with those people. And then I went to a province I didn't know. I went to Alberta because they can't touch me there, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't. Like I got arrested and held for 6 days, and Saskatchewan didn't come get me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I went out there. I went out there because the guy I was dating was still in jail, and he said that, he was a gang member. He's like, "Oh, my buddies will take care of you, like go out there." And so I went out there, and now I'm like this entitled, like, I'm a drug dealer. Like I'm I had this bratty attitude, and now I'm not. And now I'm in Edmonton on the streets. I can't access anything. I had been arrested and held for 6 days, and the police never gave me back my purse. So I lost all my identification. So like try going and accessing any services when you don't have ID, And so like now I'm like really homeless. Like
Mm-hmm.
now I'm really living on the streets. And
In Edmonton.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like there were CBOs that were trying to help me. Transition House tried to help me. Yeah, I always white knuckled it. I didn't think I needed counselors and things like that because I didn't think I was an addict. I don't have a
Oh,
problem.
still, even at this point,
Yeah, I don't
you
have a
didn't think.
problem. I don't have a problem with drugs.
So none of what was happening
No,
at
it's your
all had
fault.
anything to do with drugs.
None. It was always
Homeless
your
at
fault.
Edmonton.
Yeah. Yeah. I still, my entitlement, man. Like,
Okay, so this was your boyfriend's fault, or this was your mom's, or whatever, who's somebody else's
yeah,
fault.
the cops just have a hard on for me, or
Yeah.
like
I'm homeless because the cops arrested me, or
yeah,
something. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, or that stupid guy that ratted me out, or
Can't get my IDs. It's the government's fault.
cops stole my purse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I end up in a park in Edmonton, and these guys that I had been running from, that I had decided that I'm not going to let them control me. They're gang members of my exes, and because I wasn't answering his calls, he figured that I was probably, and I took off on these guys, that he was like, "Oh, she's cheating. She found someone new," and he went on a bad one in jail. Like he had taken some dope and messed up his brain, and so I got kidnapped and I got taken out of town. I was raped. I was shit kicked, and and like here's the thing, like I did that to people. Like I never raped somebody, but we beat up people all the time. But that was the first time it happened to me.
So your ex is in jail, and he put this out on you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he must have had some influence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then what?
I got dumped at a hospital in Edmonton, and like half naked, like just shit kicked right out of me. And those commissions, I don't know if they're security or commissioner, this guy comes out, and I remember him just looking at me like I was like wasn't worth the gum on his shoe. Right? Because I had to walk up to this window and say I'd just been beaten and raped in front of a whole freaking waiting room of people. And like we're in Edmonton, so it's like a huge waiting room. And I was embarrassed. So I go in there, and I I tell these people and they're like, they put me into this little room and they asked me if I want to call the police. And I said, well, I'm on the run. Right. So I'm like, no, I don't want no police.
Mm-hmm.
And instantly I was treated differently.
Yeah.
So I always, the good thing that happened out of that is that is like anytime today that I think, maybe drugs will solve this. I think about how I felt in that room. I think of how like I was less than, those people thought of me as less than human.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it
Yeah.
keeps me clean.
So okay, so was that it for you?
Yeah, like after that, it wasn't it. Like I wasn't done with the drugs because, of course, I didn't think drugs were the
Still.
problem.
Okay.
No, not now. It's the gang members. It's him. Like,
Yeah.
and like I will say, it started like a little bit of a war because there was a lot of people taking sides. Like me and him, were a powerhouse, and there were people taking sides at that time. And I didn't even know if I could trust my own sister. Yeah, like there were people. I had told him what happened, right? And so, and like he was in custody, so I know he sketched out really bad, and like it was a lot of shitty shit that happened, and like and there was somebody got stabbed over it, and he got his one hand broken, and I thought that would make me feel better, but it didn't. And I don't think even death would be enough, like at that time, right? Like the hurt was so bad there. And like they took my power away that I needed that power, right? I needed to have that control and that, and now like I just felt like a girl, and I think I had like a real big problem with that because I just never wanted to be that stupid girl, again.
Mm-hmm.
So I make my way back. I get all the way back to Regina. And so I met my mom at the Costco in Regina, and my mom barely recognized me. I'm just a skinny, frail rail, and I have this big, poofy, straw-looking, bleached-out hair. And I get up, like she didn't recognize me, but finally I get into her car, and I remember sitting in her car and just being like, I felt safe. I haven't felt safe in like a year. I've been on the run for like a year or more, and so I knew that as soon as I was in there that I was safe, I could go to sleep and not have an eye open, And finally, we get back home to our house in Yorkton, and by this time, my sister's got a couple kids, and she's always there, and they're raising my grandson, or not my grandson, they're raising their grandson, and I had these intentions. I had promised her that I would turn myself in, I'd deal with my shit, and then I'd, get a job and do the thing. Like, cause to me and my family, like treatment and rehab was just not an option. No one ever offered me treatment. Like, I didn't even know that there was detoxes. Like, I never knew about this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I figured like people went to jail or the hospital. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or we just die out there. And yeah. So like, so I thought I'm gonna go be normal as soon as like I'll turn myself in and be normal, mom. Like I'll go deal with my shit. And it's easier said than done, right? It's easy to make those promises when you're loaded, but once I got there, I slept for like a week, and then I ate everything in the house, and then I started to roll with the same friends. I ended up here back in Saskatoon, and I was running around out here, and I was dating this guy, and he had gotten arrested somewhere else, and the police came to raid the hotel. And I remember it was like a hotel where there was a door to the parking lot and a door to the hallway of the hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this was my crossroads. This is when like my higher power gave me a choice. And I could have, everyone else in the room ran out the back door into the parking lot and took off, right? And I didn't. I stayed. I didn't open the door. I let them kick it in. But
I'm not gonna go that easy.
Yeah, I'm not gonna let them. I'm not gonna do their job.
Yeah.
But they came in, and his constable, I think her name's Mitchell, and she arrested me, and I will never forget it because she rescued me that day, and she took that time to talk to me a little bit. I could have given him a fake name, like I had lots. It worked in the past, but I gave him my real name, and they hauled me off. I remember her pulling me into like some interrogation room, but she's like looking at me as like if I was like a prostitute, and I'm like, I'm a drug dealer. Like I had this mentality that I was better than everyone else. And I think that's what kept me so stuck out there. But anyway, so I was really offended by what she had said.
Uh-huh.
I got shipped off to Pine Grove, and I remember being like, at first this sounded like a great idea because I didn't want to do another winter on the streets. Like it was too hard. And I had too much pride to go to like places like shelters and things like that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I end up in Pine Grove, and I'm sitting there, and I'm a couple weeks clean, and I've slept, and I'm eating, and I'm like, holy shit, what did I do? Because the insanity and that stupid feeling I had when I was out there, like that wanting to get off the streets, it was gone. The minute I had a full belly and I had some sleep and The
Mhm.
dope was gone. Like because I didn't know how to cope. I didn't know
Mhm.
how to cope with life.
Okay, so you wanted to get back out there, but was this your clean date? Is this when you put it down?
Yeah, so September 6th, 2017, I was arrested in that hotel room by Constable Mitchell,
Mhm.
and September 7th, I woke up clean in a jail cell, and that is my clean date.
Awesome. Let's take a quick break, read off today's sponsors, and then we'll
Okay.
keep going. Okay, this episode is funded in part by the SK-NEIHR, the Natawaihoan, and the Mamawaikikiak Research Training and Mentorship Networks, which facilitates First Nations and Métis and First Nations health and well-being research, training, and knowledge mobilization throughout Saskatchewan. The SK-NEIHR is grounded in community and led by Métis, First Nations, and allied researchers in partnership with the Saskatchewan's 3 universities and many community partners. SK-NEIHR is funded primarily by the Canadian Institute of Health Research. EHN Canada is Canada's leading provider of mental health and addiction services, providing evidence-based and medically assisted care with 1-year wraparound services for those suffering from substance use disorder. To learn more, find their link in the show notes below. Métis Nation Saskatchewan has announced its path for the pursuit of self-government. As an MNS citizen, I am proud to see my government fight to protect my rights. This is our moment. To learn more about the treaty and our path to self-government, go to ourmoment.ca. Pine Lodge, the treatment center I went to 7 years ago when I got sober, offers inpatient addictions treatment and aftercare programming in Regina, Saskatchewan. To inquire about services or make a donation, call 306-510-1891. Wellness News Choice for Healthy Living is a local resource that works to connect people to health and wellness related products, services, and expert advice from industry professionals, locally allowing us to connect and engage. Check out wellnessnews.ca or skwellnesshub.ca today to learn more. To learn more about today's sponsors, to check out our new merch, or if you want to show us some love and buy us a coffee, all of those links are also in the show notes below. Okay, so you made the decision, and you're incarcerated now. What was your like first year like?
Oh, well, I don't think I was like, I'm going to stay sober now because once again, I still didn't see drugs as the problem, right? Like I just knew that I needed to go get a house and a job, right? Like I just needed to be normal. And I had this fixation on like that, right? That's what normal is. Like I remember buddies being like, you're fucked,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
But
that's
I'm
not
like,
gonna happen. Yeah.
I'm going to have some chickens, you know?
Yeah.
I want to be a farmer.
I'm going to put the drugs in the chickens and sell the chickens.
Grow them faster.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I was still gonna get high, right? Like
Yeah.
what that looked like, how much that I didn't know, but I didn't see the dope as the problem. I was in jail, and it was actually like I was really, really struggling with a murder of a friend of mine, and it was a bad murder. And like I remember his dad's a medicine man, and it had said that like his body, because of the way he was murdered, like why he struggled was that his spirit couldn't cross over. So this other girl on my unit was like, you should go to the feast. They're gonna do this feast, and it'll help you with like sending his spirit over. Well, of course I'm gonna do whatever I can, right? So I go to this feast and I talk to this elder, and I was sharing with her that I should switch religions because, you know, like my religion hates me, and my God put me here, and you know, because
So now it's God's fault.
well, it was God's fault that I was raped because I asked to die, right? And I remember praying while it was happening that I could just die, and it didn't happen. And then after, I was like trying to use so much drugs that I would die, and it didn't happen, right? So I was like, you know, it really was his fault. And today I see like he was just, you know, walking with me so that I could help others, right? Help other women that go through this too. Anyway, so in jail, I'm trying to switch religions, and then she laughs at me and tells me, you know, you're praying for the wrong things. And she kind of told us all, she's like, if you get down on your knees and you're praying for something, you make sure really think about what you're praying for. Because I've been, like she said, right now you're all praying to get out of jail, but like it doesn't matter who you're praying to, that prayer is going to be answered, because you're going to you could get out when you die. You can get out in 6 months. You can get out in a year. Like you're already going to get out. She said, pray for the tools to change. And so that stuck with me. And I went back to my cell, and I really had a good pray. Like crying, like I had to surrender a lot on my journey, but that was my first surrender. And where I was just asking for anything, like I'm open. I'm being completely open-minded to a new way of life. They hauled me into this video court, and they're telling me that what is that? The federal crown and the provincial crown, they're both agreeing that I can get released into a program called drug court. And I'm like, I prayed for the tools to change, and I was given a 16-month long program that was going to give me the tools to change. Didn't know that at that time, because then I was like, I went back to my unit because I heard the word release. They're going to release me on Tuesday. So I go back to my unit, and the first thing I do, even though I had great intentions, the first thing I do is I get on the phone and I call the dope guy to meet me at the courthouse. Like,
So your prayer was genuine,
yeah.
but it took over again.
Well, I got distracted. I get distracted. I don't have the coping mechanisms. We can't expect addicts, like, it doesn't matter. You can take away the dope for a couple of years. We can't expect them to make those kind of changes overnight. Like, I know for me, it couldn't happen. I needed to be taught tools. I needed repetition of using those tools before I could actually make changes in my life and see success and gifts and all that stuff. So I got released, and then I was released to this program called drug court. I called the dope guy to meet me at the courthouse. I will never know if he made it, because stupid Kate's place. I love Kate's place. It's a women's house, but this little lady Arlette, she pulled up, and she, like, literally, you get released from the basement of the courthouse in Regina, and, like, she's there.
Yeah.
Get in the car. And I'm like
that?
Yeah. So I'm like, are you the dope guy? This girl that's with her is offering me a cigarette. Like, I didn't know who sent you.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden we end up at Kate's place. So I'm like, okay, you're Kate's place. And that's where I had been told I had to live while I attend drug court. And, like, I still have this intention that, like, one day I'm going to be able to use again. But while I'm in this program, I can stay clean. And I remember sitting across from this addictions counselor with my arms crossed, like, you know, how are you going to help me? Like, you went to school for this? And then she told me a little bit of her story, and she was just like me, you know, and the softest voice. And like within minutes, like, she had me so emotional, crying like my whole life story out. And, you know, and she just let me talk. For the first time, someone didn't talk over me. Someone didn't try to tell me how things had to be, or, you know, like, she just let me share my story. And then she didn't try to fix it. You know, she just heard. I don't know she was just listening. The next 13 months, like, was intense. Like, drug court is intense. And it's important that I didn't get arrested with guns, hey, because if I had been, I wouldn't have qualified for that program, right? Like, it's a very small gap of people that can go to that program. But it's, like, such a life-saving program. I'm a huge fan of it. The restorative justice piece, we did this program called moral recognition therapy that changed my thinking. It helped me realize, like, that I had to take accountability. Yes, bad things happen to me, you know, but that does not excuse my bad behavior. Those two things, my bad behavior and the bad things that happen to me, are separate. And that was hard. It was hard to accept that and have to take accountability that, like, I did this shitty shit. One of the biggest things that they told me was that I wasn't a bad person. Right. And that I had carried so much shame since that first time my dad looked at me with that, you know, yuckiness in his face, that like, he was disappointed in me. Like, you know, for the first time, I felt like I was an actual good person. Like, there was, like, maybe I had all this yuck on the outside, all these masks I was wearing, but deep down, that there was a good person inside of me.
No one ever said that to you before?
No, I was a fuck up. You know, I was, you know, you screwed this up. You failed at this. You screwed this up. Like, you're such a smart kid. Imagine where you'd be. Like, look at your friends that you used to do their homework for, and now look at where they are today. You know, and so, like, I was constantly reminded of how I messed up my life. You know, and for the first time in my life, I had people looking at me saying, "You're such a good person. You have such a future. Man, you have potential." You know, and I like that. I like that a lot. This is the first time probably since I was 15 that I didn't have a boyfriend, you know, because that's another addiction in itself. And I really learned who I was. I went to Pine Lodge. I don't know, something happened there where I realized that cockiness of, like, I'm not an addict, I'm different, I'm unique. It left. And I remember thinking, like, you know, like, it was actually my counselor that pointed it out there, that, you know, every time I pick up dope, I end up in jail. Right? Like, there's insanity to it. Right?
What did that feel like?
You know what? I mean, I would love to say that it felt great and all that stuff. It crushed me, man. Like, it was like, there went my excuse to ever use. Like, if I really I want that house and the job, I can't do dope. You know, I had to grieve that drug. I had to grieve that lifestyle. Yes, the lifestyle came with a lot of costs, but there was benefits to it too, right? And when that denial was lifted up and I could see the like ugliness of it, and that if I want to be over here, that stuff has to go. You know, it was hard. Wish I could say it was like, oh, it was all rainbows and butterflies, but it wasn't. It was like, and now I had a fear. I had a fear because if I pick up, I could die. If I pick up, I could end up back out there. And what if I never get this opportunity again?
Now, you completed Pine Lodge.
Yep.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Did you dive into the program right away, or what did that look like?
Yeah. So I obviously I'm an NA member. My very first NA meeting was the hospitals and institutions meeting. I had this really amazing dude he used to use with, and I thought he had died. He walks in and he's carrying this H&I message of hope and recovery. And he gave me this bear hug, and like he's one of the last people I seen before I went on the run. Right. So yeah, so I dive into the program. I dive into the 12-step program. After I come out of Pine Lodge, I come out with like a new perception, you know, and of what the program is. And I start to realize that I'm quieter, not so loud. I need to work on myself. And then through drug court, we did this program called Moral Recognition Therapy. Amazing program. MRT, it's a 12-step program too. And it taught me how to set goals and I started to realize like that, yeah, in the beginning, I had like really materialistic values. And then towards the end of that, it taught me how, you know, to have real values again. And like I was born with, I'm raised with those. I just had to find them again.
Yeah.
And then eventually, like every program ends, right? Like any program that you take, it ends. Like drug court ended, MRT ended. You know, going to Pine Lodge ends, detox ends, and Narcotics Anonymous doesn't. Right? The 12-step programs out there, the mutual support groups don't. And so, you know, with them holding my hand, I was able to see what actually is good for me. Because if I would have went back to like making a ton of money and like doing all that kind of stuff, my ego would have went out of control. All my character defects would be back, and eventually I would have picked up. Right. Like I ended up moving out to Moose Jaw. In my first year of living there, I founded a group. It was called Speak Out, and we were a women's support group, just like the 12-step program, but it was a support group for women that had trauma, like you know, sexual violence, abuse, anything like that. And we were helping women before they pick up dope. Like I had given myself permission to use when I graduated drug court.
Okay.
My 1-year birthday, I sat in that room, small little NA room, and I looked around and the room was overly packed. Like there was not a spot. And it wasn't because all my friends that were there. It was because all my family was there. You know, like 16 people from my family. And I had this huge family, and it, you know, and I looked around and I was like, maybe this could be a forever thing. And then I got an opportunity a couple years ago to do a video called Stop Messing Around. I had this lady, Mary Lee Booth from Moose Jaw. She's amazing and a strong ally, right? And so she reached out and asked me if I wanted to be in this movie about crystal meth. So we did the story. I shared my story and it blew up, and we were, you know, we had all these views and all that stuff. But the more important thing is that people were seeing it. It was on Shaw, and they were seeing it in the jails. They were seeing it in the treatment centers. And then they were getting out and they were coming. Like I had people come up to me at the meetings and being like, you're that girl from the video. Like I listened to you and I'm here now. You know, or you gave me hope. I relate to you. Or you sound so much like my sister. Could you talk to her? You know, family members pouring their hearts out to me that, you know, how can I help my daughter or my son, or, you know, and being able to like share that there is hope, you know, no matter what the situation is. We got to, because of that video, we did, it was called Meagan's Journey, and we went all across Saskatchewan into schools and we spoke to kids. And, you know, I remember when they asked me, like, what age group do you think that we should be speaking to? And I said, you got to get into the elementary schools. You got to get them before they go to high school. I mean, you know, like we go out there and there's so much stigma around the disease of addiction. And like when I go and speak to like suits, I always call them, or normies, the questions are like, there's a lot of ignorance. Like, well, if they'd stop busing in all the addicts or from out of town, or just lock them all up, or, all that stuff, like you're talking about me when you're when you're saying statements like that, you are talking about me, you know, and you might not, like, we might mean my brothers and sisters still out there on the streets, but those are my brothers and sisters, and I was once like them. But yeah, so, but I just want to say this. I went into a little school. I went into this little school, French immersion schooling in Moose Jaw, and these grade 7, the class of grade 7. and I shared my story with them, like PG version,
Yeah.
right? And these kids were they're just like, oh my God, are you okay? Like, they were so worried about my well-being. Then they went to their principal after and they said, can you book her next year? We want to know if Meagan's still okay. Like they wanted, and I'm like, oh my God, these are the kids that are going to change the stigma. I think that that's the key to a lot of the breaking down the stigma, is to like focus on our kids. Like, let's educate our children. I know that I'm raising my sister's kids, and my sister's 2 daughters, and that's one of the biggest things for them, is that I keep that really. They know about, like, I mean, they lived in trap houses and all that kind of stuff, right? So the oldest is no dummy, right? And so that's why I, instead of being like, oh no, we're not going to talk about that, you're too young to talk about that, we talk about it. We talk about it. We talk about where it leads us. We talk about, we drive around and they see somebody out on the street. Meagan, is that somebody you work with? And then sometimes, like, my oldest, she'll go and she writes these little notes, you are loved, and she'll make like a stack like that, you are loved, you are worthy, you belong, and ask me to go to my work and hand them out. So, and sometimes she puts them with granola bars, and and I think it's just so beautiful, because that is how we're going to end stigma. But I will say this, I look my DOC in the face like every day, and I see the disease rapid, right? But I also, like I work my ass off, and to plant seeds, I call it. I stopped trying to fix people, and I started trying to just plant a seed of hope, that maybe, because I feel like all throughout my addiction that nobody did that for me. Nobody told me that there was this kind of way, and this is how you get it. Maybe they tried, and I was just so closed-minded. So I just try to show people that, and we plant those seeds, but sometimes we don't get to see them grow. But recently I've got to see so many of these people that, were struggling out there on the streets. Like they're getting, one of my girls is getting a year clean right away. Like
Beautiful.
that's beautiful. Another one got a year a couple months ago, and like another guy, he's going to be taking 2 years, and and it's so, like, you see one person make it, and that all the shit you go through, all the shitty days, all the death, all that stuff, it's worth it if it saves one person.
And all the systems navigation, and all the relationship building, and all of the angry social workers, and all of the
We're really blessed in Moose Jaw that, like, my coworker and I'm gonna do a shout out, Nika. She's like this little, I call her my little Mexican coworker. She's Latina, and so she's just a little firecracker, and she me and her, we network all over the place, and we have really good relationships with social services and all that. But we do see that, like, certain people are treated differently than others. And that's one of my big things, is that no matter, I might not like your mom, I might not like your dad, I might be battling them in this advocacy over here, or, they're on an opposite of my kids' hockey team over here, but I will never treat you differently. One of the biggest things, Dan, is that I had to learn, because I come from like, I had one kick at the can and I got clean. Right? Relapse is not a part of my story. To me, it's a lack of recovery, and that might be what I believe in my heart. However, I have a sister that struggles with fentanyl, and until I watched her and realized, like, I took that girl and tried to cold turkey clean her, and she almost died.
like locked down in the
Yeah.
basement.
Well, in a camper.
Yeah. Sorry.
We were renovating our house, so
Okay.
yeah, and her kids running around, like, I don't know. I had to I had to open my eyes, and that's the thing, is, like, until it affects somebody you love, it's different. It's different when it affects someone you love, because I tried my way repeatedly with my sister. It broke my spirit. It broke everything. I didn't want to work in this field anymore. If I can't save her, how can I help anyone else? And I realized that's ego again, because it's not my place to save her. God's got to save her, and she's got to get up and do it herself. Right. And when I realized that and could set those boundaries, and I could still talk to her, and then one day she was ready, and now she's got like almost 9 months clean. Like, she's doing amazing. And relapse is a huge part of her story. Suboxone is a huge part of her story. All these things that, maybe in the program that I'm in a complete abstinence program, and maybe her story doesn't fit that recovery model, but I think it's very, very important for people to understand that, there are many different ways.
So where can people find you?
Well, I live in Moose Jaw, but I answer calls and texts and everything. You can look me up on Facebook. Meagan, Dan could probably tag me in this, but
Yeah.
Meagan Jasper on Facebook. I also, if you are struggling, with legal stuff and all that kind of stuff, John Hart is an amazing tool. And if you want to reach out to us, we're all over the place, but I work for the one in Moose Jaw, and you can just call us and find me there.
Thanks so much for joining me today, Meagan.
Thanks.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, take care. Okay, if you got anything out of that, please hit that like button at the bottom of the screen. If you're not yet subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. And I want to hear your thoughts. Leave me a comment down there if you heard something that you liked, something that resonated with you, something that you didn't like, something that you think Meagan's full of it. Like, let us know. We want to hear your thoughts. I'm all about fostering productive conversations about substance use, and I can't do it alone. So with that, that's all I got. Thanks so much. Take care.
Say, this is Hard Knocks Talks.